From our Chicago studios, this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Samana Siddiqui. Our top story tonight. An Israeli attack on a food distribution center in Rafah yesterday killed at least 5 people, including a UN humanitarian worker. It also wounded 20 others. The targeted facility was managed by the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees, or UNRWA. It was critical for providing essential supplies to Palestinians facing starvation. UNRWA spokesperson Juliette Touma says about 60 people were in the building at the time of the bombing. The agency's Commissioner General, Philippe Lazzarini, condemned the attack. He also noted that the UN regularly shares coordinates of its facilities with the Israeli army to prevent such tragedies. Lazzarini stressed a dire humanitarian situation in Gaza, with food shortages escalating into famine in some areas. Jordan has condemned Israel's recent installation of iron barriers at 3 entrances of Al-Aqsa Mosque in Israeli-occupied East Jerusalem. The Jordanian Foreign Ministry has labeled the move as dangerous and unacceptable, emphasizing that Israel lacks sovereignty over the area. The ministry is urging the international community to intervene and halt Israel's violations of international law. Hamas has called on Palestinians to rally on Friday to break what it says is an Israeli siege on Islam's third holiest site. Jews call the area the Temple Mount, claiming it was the site of 2 Jewish temples in ancient times. Progressives are condemning what they say are racist remarks by conservative CNN contributor Scott Jennings against Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. They say the comments are racially charged and have likened them to post-9/11 Islamophobia. Jennings called Omar a public relations agent for Hamas during a CNN segment, sparking outrage.
No, she's a Democrat. They're going to vote for Biden. I'm not surprised about that. I am surprised that in the year of our Lord, 2024, there is a public relations agent for Hamas sitting in the United States Congress.
Omar had questioned Israel's commitment to ceasefire talks regarding Gaza and criticized President Joe Biden's national security advisor for incomplete updates. Despite Omar's explicit support for prisoner release, Jennings accused her of neglecting American captives. Omar, who has faced death threats for her stance on Gaza, reiterated her call for release of all prisoners and denounced recent violence. The incident has reignited debates over racism and bias in media discourse, prompting widespread support for Omar among progressives and advocacy groups. MIT is at the center of a controversy for suppressing pro-Palestinian activism. The Coalition Against Apartheid claims the university administration is taking disciplinary action against activists and threatening them with expulsion. Coalition head Safia Agundipe claims they face suspension after organizing protests in support of Palestine, with MIT President Sally Kornbluth publicly announcing the group's suspension. Ogundipe notes a broader trend of repression against such activism at various universities. Despite the challenges, the coalition vows to continue advocating for Palestinian rights, including ceasefire, withdrawal of occupation forces, and support for the right of return. This comes at a time when Israel is accused of genocide at the International Criminal Court and amid worldwide calls for humanitarian aid to Gaza, as well as an end to Israel's occupation. Protests continue over the illegal sale of Palestinian properties in synagogues across the U.S. and Canada. This coincides with Israel's ongoing war in Gaza. Canadian Rabbi David Mivasser noted these sales have persisted for years but are now garnering significant attention. New Jersey peace activist Rich Siegel condemned these sales, citing violations of anti-discrimination and international laws. Siegel says the listed sale locations were in Jewish settlements in the West Bank, which have already been declared illegal by various countries. Siegel, a resident of Teaneck, New Jersey for 25 years, labeled Israel's actions in Gaza as genocide, emphasizing U.S. complicity. He highlighted a growing resistance among young Jews against Zionist narratives fueled by social media awareness. The issue underscores deepening divisions within Jewish communities over support for Israeli policies. A Georgia state judge has allowed a racketeering case against ex-President Donald Trump to proceed. Prosecutors have been given 6 months to resubmit the charges to a grand jury. This case involves the former president's alleged efforts to overturn Georgia's presidential election results in 2020. However, Judge McAfee also dismissed 6 out of 41 election-related charges against Trump and his co-defendants, those related to alleged attempts to sway officials into overturning state election results. McAfee emphasized that while the indictment outlined ample conduct, it lacked essential details regarding the nature of the crimes. TikTok ban sparks outrage from critics. Details after the break, so stay tuned and we'll be right back. Welcome back. Progressives have criticized the recent passage of a bill to ban TikTok in the House of Representatives. The bill aims to ban the social media platform unless its Chinese parent company divests its stake, prompting concerns over digital privacy. The bipartisan 352 to 65 vote approved the Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary-Controlled Applications Act. That targets apps like TikTok, which is owned by Chinese company ByteDance. 50 House Democrats and 15 Republicans dissented. Critics are arguing for a comprehensive digital privacy law over what they perceive as targeted measures against Chinese-owned platforms. The Berkeley City Council unanimously voted to return a San Francisco Bay Area parking lot to the Ohlone people. The parking lot was carved out of atop a 5,700-year-old Ohlone tribal shell mound. The decision follows a settlement with developers who own the land. The ordinance grants title of the land to the Sogorea Te Land Trust, a women-led collective that raised funds for the agreement. Mayor Jesse Araguin said the move will address past wrongs committed against indigenous tribes. The parking lot, the last undeveloped part of the West Berkeley shell mound, holds historical significance as a ceremonial and burial site. The settlement ends a 6-year legal battle involving Rugen Ellsworth LLC accepting $27 million and relinquishing the property. The trust plans to construct a commemorative park with a cultural center to honor Ohlone heritage. It marks a significant step towards reconciliation and preservation of indigenous history. Sudan's army says it has taken control of national radio and television headquarters from the Rapid Support Forces, or RSF paramilitary group. Located in Omdurman, west of the capital Khartoum, the headquarters was seized by the RSF in April 2023. There was no comment from the RSF on the army's claim. Clashes renewed earlier this week between the two military rivals, despite a call for a truce in Sudan during Ramadan by the UN Security Council. A UK-drafted resolution issued by the Council also called on all parties to the conflict to seek a sustainable resolution to the fighting through dialogue. Sudan has been mired in fighting between the army and the RSF since last April. At least 13,900 people have been killed and more than 8 million displaced in the conflict, according to UN figures. Bangladesh is mobilizing efforts to rescue the crew of hijacked Bangladeshi ship MV Abdullah. Deputy Minister for Shipping Khalid Mahmood Chaudhry said Bangladesh is taking appropriate measures to rescue the ship and its crew. Somali pirates seized the vessel in the Indian Ocean, detaining all 23 crew members. Chief Officer Atikullah Khan and Chief Engineer Saeeduzzama made distress calls, highlighting the threat to their lives if a ransom is not paid. Chaudhry asserted no confirmation of imminent harm, but said measures are being taken, with the ship still far off the Somali coast. The UN High Commissioner for Refugees and humanitarian partners are urging global action to aid Rohingya refugees hosted in Bangladesh. Nearly 1 million Rohingya have sought shelter in Bangladesh since fleeing genocide in Burma over 7 years ago. The 2024 Joint Response Plan, led by Bangladeshi authorities, seeks over $850 million to assist more than 1 million people. Over 1 million Rohingya live in Bangladesh's Cox's Bazar, the world's largest refugee settlement. The plan aims to provide essentials like food, shelter, healthcare, and education. Urgent support is emphasized, especially for vulnerable groups like women and children who face heightened risks of abuse. Approximately 95% of Rohingya households in Bangladesh are vulnerable and remain dependent on humanitarian assistance. The Coalition of Hindus of North America is applauding the implementation of India's controversial Citizenship Amendment Act, or CAA. The group is calling it a victory for persecuted religious minorities from neighboring Muslim-majority nations. The law grants citizenship to Hindus, Parsis, Sikhs, Buddhists, Jains, and Christians who fled religious persecution in Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Afghanistan before 2015. However, the exclusion of Muslims from the law sparked nationwide protests when it was passed in 2019, killing 100 people, mostly Muslims. The legislation has been criticized by Amnesty International India for violating constitutional principles of equality and secularism. India's constitution says it is a secular country and that it shall accept all religions and not favor any particular one. Critics fear the CAA, coupled with a national register of citizens, could marginalize and disenfranchise many Muslims. The Indian government denies anti-Muslim allegations, claiming that the law aims to assist persecuted minorities. However, human rights groups point to increasing mistreatment of Muslims under Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's leadership since 2014. These include attacks, lynchings, and hate speech. Critics argue such incidents surged after the ascent of Modi and his BJP party, with a significant number of hate speech cases reported in BJP-ruled states. That's all from our Chicago studios tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell icon for the latest updates. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV or visit muslimnetwork.tv. Salam and good night.